homework. I'm going to put some links down in the description. It's both Golf Monthly videos. So go to the Golf Monthly YouTube channel. Joe did a warm-up session with Bryson's irons, and then we played a tournament together. So maybe if you want to go and watch that before we have this chat, that could be fun.
Do it now. Pause us. Watch those. Come back to it.
We'll wait. Hello, welcome back to the episode of Kickpoint, the Golf Gear Show. Thank you for your company for another week. And guess who has returned?
Guess who's back? Back again. Oh, sorry.
Joe the Pro. Welcome back, Joe the Pro.
I'm back.
Where the have you been?
Talking of back, I was a bit naughty, Dan.
We'll bleep that.
Back, I was off because of a back. Sore back issues, being old, golfing, not stretching, not looking after myself.
And you couldn't make up to the shoot, and that was fine. And is this vest some sort of support system for the back?
No, this hasn't been prescribed on the NHS. This is a pure fashion choice.
For those listening, it's a lovely white and green vest. So welcome back, Joe the Pro. We're very excited to have you back. Now, for those who are really in tune to the Kickpoint schedule, this was supposed to be the third and final episode of Sam Diath.
Yes.
Talking about putters. However, we spoke about a product that's under embargo. So we've pushed that to next week.
Did a whoopsie, did you? Leave you alone for 5 minutes and you do a whoopsie.
So next week, you'll see what that is. So Sam will be back next week, but Joe's back for the foreseeable. He's back in. He's okay. And for those watching, welcome to our new home. We have got a brand new studio. You can take a look at it now if you're watching. Joe, describe it for the people who are listening. We've got a new permanent home.
Beautiful, yeah. Where we film in Reading, our sort of HQ, we've had sort of temporary accommodation. Yeah, so every time we come, we have to wheel out our stuff out the storeroom, reset it up. Takes ages. Then we've got to unset it. Is that a thing? Deconstruct it at the end. So we've got another out. So all this will do is allow us more time to plan, more time to be ready, just better content. And it just looks really cool.
We've been able to actually put stuff up on the wall because we weren't allowed to do that. We need to talk about the shaft wall. This beautiful, it's got green LEDs on it. We've got a mixture of all the great shafts in the world of golf. And it just looks really pretty, Joe.
We went to B&Q last night, didn't we? Other DIY stores are available. But we went to B&Q, bought the LED lights at about 7:45 last night. And I think it looks great.
Yes. So this is our new permanent home. Hope you like the look of it if you're watching. And if you're listening, well, it doesn't really change anything for you, does it? And that's fine. Coming up this week, we must do that. We've got a normal episode to get stuck into. Tested this week, new TaylorMade P790. That always feels like a big release to me, Joe.
It's a big hitter. It was one of the few odds that's really changed things, almost created its own new category, which we'll get into. And people, what we've seen from our social clips on that, actually, people really care about P790.
Yeah, so they do.
Let's have a deeper dive, right?
So we'll deep dive into that. I want to briefly talk about the Golf Pride Align Max Grip.
We missed a section here. It says preamble.
Yeah, well, we're going to do the preamble in a minute.
Okay.
You're not supposed to tell the listener that. It's supposed to come across really naturally.
Sorry. All right. Okay.
So the Golf Pride Align Max we'll chat about. We've got an Ask the Pod that wants to hear more from you, Joe. Which is fine. Now you're back. You had a little dig with Bryson's clubs. We played together, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But Joe's going to go into a bit more detail about his time playing with Bryson DeChambeau's actual clubs. And then we've got a Whitby again this week. Back to sort of normal proceedings.
Looking forward to this one.
Hideki Matsuyama, Joe.
Mysterious man.
Why?
I'll quantify that later. I think it's the language thing because he doesn't speak much or any English. You never hear his thoughts. So you build your entire persona of him based on his golf and his body language. And I just think it adds a cool air of mystery to him.
It does, doesn't it? And there is a bit about his equipment, I think, because it chops and changes quite a lot. He's got some tour-only putters that are always coming out of the bag. So we'll get stuck into that. So that's this week. Very exciting. And if you've been with us since day one, that's like the OG format, isn't it? Release season's done. We've done our best ofs. We're back to the bread and butter.
Drop us a line on that, actually. I'm keen to know what people think of the launch season stuff. Have we asked for this before?
We have.
Okay, brilliant.
Ask for it again if you want. I know it's been a while, big man.
Just if you get some correspondence in, did you enjoy the launch season? Because I'm concerned that if we start talking about a product that you're not interested in as an individual, you're just not going to listen to that episode. Whereas obviously in our normal episodes, we try to encompass lots of different segments that might drag you into different bits. You might enjoy some bits more than others, but when it's focused solely on one product, that's my concern. So I'd love to know.
No, and we are an open book on that sort of stuff. Yeah. We're happy to hear from you and have this as you want. It's the listeners' show and the viewers' show as much as it is ours. A few plugs before we get stuck in, Joe. We have a brand new newsletter. How about that?
Madness.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? So every Friday, I think it's 4 p.m. UK. Should have checked this.
I think you're right.
It's definitely Friday afternoon. That's UK time. You can sign up wherever you are in the world. It's got a lovely little message from you and me at the top of it. It basically reminds you about the episode that's been launched on that day because they come out every Friday. You'll get a link to the audio and the video, but there's some bonuses in it, Joe. There's some sort of longer tail content that we might have done that week. We might have, Sam Diat did a great review on some niche putter. And we put your P790 review in it last week. There's basically some content you might not have heard in that week's episode. You can go and read. There's some golf deals on there for those in the US or in the UK. So
not just any old waffly golf deals. We've hand selected.
We're not giving you the nonsense.
Yeah, because like as you told me in our preamble to the preamble before we started this, there's some bad deals. There's some boring deals. There's some not much off on some products that just aren't very good. But we've picked the products we genuinely think are really good and genuinely good discounts.
So it could be like a good product that's only got like a tenner off, but it's a good product, so it's fine. Or like that's an unbelievable deal because it's got 100 quid off.
Yeah.
Something like that. So that'll be in there though. And then at the bottom, Joe's try that again. It's Joe's eyebrow razor. What's that all about? That's the thing I'd sign up for.
Yeah, Joe's eyebrow razor. That is, I don't know where that's been born from, but it's
your eyebrow razors on Instagram.
Yes, correct. That's exactly where it's come from. It's just something that I've noticed in the equipment world that week that raises my eyebrow. Things that make you go,
So that's our brand new newsletter. You can sign up at www.golfmonthly.com/newsletter. That link is in the description of your podcast platform or on YouTube. If you're watching over there, do sign up. It's more content from us and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And it's just once a week. You're not getting bombarded with anything at all. While I'm plugging things, Joe, if you're watching us on YouTube, hello. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps us out very much. We've appreciated everyone who has so far. If you're listening, you're the OGs. We always make sure we try and be as prescriptive as possible for those just listening.
Sure.
But if you're following, make sure you're following or subscribed on wherever you listen to us, because then the show comes in your feed as it arrives, 2:00 on a Friday, and leave us a 5-star review while you're there. We're also on Instagram and TikTok. You can follow us over there. Instagram especially. We're on both platforms, Joe. You've been busy roasting some people's bags over the last few weeks while you were hauled up at home with your back injury.
Just feeling grumpy
about
my back.
Yeah, just sort of roasting people. What's all that about? Tell the people.
Venom at bags. Yeah, so we had a couple of people send their bags in for Ask the Pod content, and we asking various things. I think it was born from that, and we just came up with the idea of let's get into the bags because some silly things we see in bags, and I've just gone a bit mean, roasty, and calling out some people with some odd bags, some odd equipment, and
coming up with these little characters,
creating a picture of the person whose bags, and I think you can get scarily accurate by all accounts. So I'm going to continue to do that. That's going well.
Really
I'm enjoying that.
So head over to our Instagram and TikTok channels, links and descriptions, etc., to go and see them. And if you want your bag roasted by Joe the Pro, he'll be as kind as he can. You can DM us or email us, keepwhitepodcast@futurenet.com. Right, enough logistics, Joe. Let's get into the preamble.
Starting with the preamble.
It should be more natural than this.
Okay.
Ryan Barath, who's a fantastic equipment journalist over at Scratch, which is sort of like works with the PGA Tour quite closely, did a great bit of deep diving on the fact that not a lot of this year's winners on tour have been using new product, Joe. So why do you think none of the pros at the minute are using 2025 drivers?
None of strong. There is a few. So TaylorMade, for example, you've got Fleetwood's in the new product already, Morikawa, but I guess it's born from the two real headline players I would probably suggest with TaylorMade. Rory and Scotty are still in QI10 product. Scotty's been out for a little while, so it hasn't been as notable. Rory went and won at Pebble Beach, so people were immediately questioning why he's still in QI10 versus QI35. Then we had Ludwig, didn't we, at Torrey? Was it the Genesis? Which one was it?
The Genesis, which ended up moving to Torrey because of the wildfires.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But he changed on the last day of the tournament.
Mid-round? Yeah, not mid-round, sorry. But in the middle of the tournament. So he was GT, I think it's GT2 he was in for the first 3 rounds. And I've heard no comment on it from him or Titleist, but pre-final round. It's obviously going well. He's well in contention for the event that he ended up winning. But just switched it out for his old TSR product, which is it's no massive surprise. When you look at the stats since he's turned pro of his driver, just like a generational driver of the golf course. For his length, incredibly straight, just monotonous, just beats golf courses to death, just bullies them with drivers. So it wasn't a huge surprise to see him switch to that. But I guess the surprise is, why were you in a different product to start? It's just such a tough one, and I don't know.
That was a weird one, right? So this is, again, Ryan Barath's work. I will absolutely credit him for this. Here are the winners from the Century to the Genesis. Hideki, Strixon ZX5 LS driver. The Sony Open, Nick Taylor, Titleist TSI3. The Amex was won with the Callaway AI Smoke Triple Diamond. The Farmers was won with the Ping G430 LST, which was Harris English.
Yeah.
The AT&T, Rory, QI10. The Waste Management, Thomas Dietrich, the Callaway AI Smoke Triple Diamond. And then the Genesis ended up being, on the winning day, the TSR2. So why are none of the winners using it, do we think, Joe? Is there a theory you've got? Like, I just want to hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, I'm sort of formulating this organically as we talk here, but I just wonder whether, I mean, I test drivers for a living. That's my job. I test a lot of equipment, but drivers are part of that. And over the last, I'm not going to put a time scale on it because people will argue with that, but over the past period of time, we've got to a point, I just wonder whether we've now got to a point where the gains are, I mean, people spout about this all the time online, don't they? It isn't worth spending the new money on a new driver, marketing nonsense, so. And I get it. And I wonder whether we're starting to get to a point where the potential gains are so minimal now, because every year we're talking about the same story of people are focusing heavily on forgiveness at the moment. And I'm not suggesting it's like a smokescreen or masquerading, but it's a really difficult one to quantify. So you can measure ball speed, you can measure spin rates, you can measure launch angles and things like that. So hanging your hat on suggesting you've massively improved ball speed is a bad idea because A, there's regulations from the RNA and USGA to regulate COR, to regulate ball speeds really. So no one's getting any quicker as of now, and things are only probably going to get slower with the ball rollback that's coming in eventually. So what's the reason to switch? If you're dialed in with optimal spin rates, if you're maxed out in terms of your speed, let alone taking in the unquantifiable things if you're just used to it, you know what that's going to do under pressure, you know what this driver's tendencies are.
You've got that scar tissue with it, you've spoken about it a few times.
Built up, that I've said to you before. I know what, when I hit it low off the heel, it does this. This is how I keep this driver in play. I just wonder now whether we're getting to a point where the juice isn't worth the squeeze of switching because you're going to have to relearn that stuff. And if you're relearning it to just get 0.25% more forgiveness from a new face and things like that, then I do wonder whether people are going to feel like it's worth it. I mean, it's interesting that this is quite a new thing because in the better players, the more high profile players that are paid a fortune to play products, generally speaking, I think in a lot of their contracts, there is stipulations to say they need to be playing current products.
I'd love to know what those contracts say.
And I'd love to know what the timescale of when you have to make that switch is, because
you've got
obviously
4 months.
Rory's slipping over that at the moment. The Scotty ones is potentially, there's a caveat to that because he was out injured, wasn't he? He hurt his hand. So maybe he didn't have time to test and get familiar with the product. He did use the QI35 at the showdown. When he was playing, him and Rory were playing against Bryson and
that
Brooks.
would have been like, right, no one really cares about the tournament. TaylorMade like, right, it's coming out. There's the week it was not the week it was coming out, but like giving us a month preview. Yeah. You're going to use it regardless.
Because that would create a nice buzz, people will see it, etc. But interesting that he has started with it and reverted back. So yeah, it's a tough one. So I quite often those bigger players, like I said, the stipulation and the stakes are higher. So they're front and center of all the coverage and all the sort of marketing campaigns. They're usually a bit more insistent that those people change. So I'm wondering, two caveats was it the Scheffler injury that's prevented him having enough testing and time to get used to it? Rory's driving stats are brilliant, but they're generally brilliant with whatever they have been. Is he scared of changing? I wonder what the length of his TaylorMade contract is. I wonder whether things are moving in that direction. I don't know.
These are just questions.
Pure speculation.
But to me, Joe, it's like this hasn't happened. This didn't happen in 2023. This didn't happen at the start of 2024. Like the winners were, broadly speaking, I'd probably have to go and do some research on this. And maybe I should have to add to Ryan's work. But I didn't feel like this was happening in the last couple of years, basically. So maybe, again, let's just throw questions out there. Maybe brands are becoming less worried as long as it's our product. I'm not going to force you into the new one if you like in that one just yet. Maybe we're too early in the season to really get a gauge of this. Maybe come the Masters in a month, 6 weeks time, then we'll see. I think we've got more questions than answers here.
We have. We're just chatting. We're just discussing it.
We're just having a chat.
And there's plenty of stuff that manufacturers in general wouldn't be delighted with their players, I would imagine, in terms of, so let's take Ludwig, for example, Titleist. He is using and has been since he turned pro. It's like a $90 Odyssey Versa putter. And this guy is a Titleist player. He's got access to Scotty. I would imagine he's a top 5 player in the world with exclusive access to Scotty Cameron, world-renowned.
Speed dial.
You know, you'd think by this point you'd have him in Scotty Cameron product, and you would think that'd be heavily on the radar of Titleist to try and we need you in Scotty Cameron. This is one of our flagship ranges of golf clubs. We need you in that. Similarly, Stealth Fairway Woods for Ludwig. Again, you're always just making up things about how many clubs people are on within their deal, but I do wonder how some of these deals are made up. And
one would suggest this is a 10 club deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it sounds
good to me.
Sounds like you could be right. But yeah, going back to the original question, I just wonder whether we're just at that point in time now where we've exhausted all those forgiveness changes, and it just isn't worth the getting used to. Because there's got to come a point when that is the case. I think that's been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. I think every season a drivers released for the past however many years, again, I won't put a timescale on it, I think there have been gains, but they've been getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. There's only so far you can take it. And I wonder whether now we're just at that breaking point of there's not much else you can do. Realistically, when I'm testing drivers now, very rarely does something leap out. Certainly nothing ever leaps out in terms of ball speed. You might find something that's particularly heavily draw bias that's going to really suit someone for slices. You might, like the Wilson Dynapower LS product this year is heavily fade bias. If you've got someone who moves it left significantly as a right-hander, that's going to be great to mitigate that. So you can pull out little nuggets of certain things at individual performance, but most of these guys in general want things set up pretty neutrally, so that's not going to affect them. Most of the stuff that I see and I look at in terms of my reviews, aesthetics and feel. Because those are
the things that can change significantly, and that's the only things that can really touch.
If I look at my
they're
data,
working within parameters anyway, so
yeah, and that's all they can do. And this isn't a slight at the manufacturers. They're all making incredible products, and quite clearly they've all got to the almost the extent of what.
Are we at the end of the road?
Are we at the end of the road? I don't know, because I look at my data from 2020, the 2025 drivers. I've just finished testing versus the 2024 drivers. It's basically identical. There are things that pop up, which is why it's sometimes difficult to get a review out straight away, but people want to know about these products straight away, because I've written some reviews and I sometimes go back in and add some bits in and change it about throughout the year, because as I've used this product more and more, you start to notice a little bit more things over the course of time. A certain mishit really doesn't go very well on a certain club, like it doesn't perform well off the toe, this golf club, or vice versa. So I quite often go back in and update those. But yeah, you need a bit of time. But like I say, from a raw ball speed, launch conditions, data point of view, my 2025 stuff to 2024 is basically identical. So I wonder whether that's it.
And maybe like their testing window is a bit shorter. The season's so long now. When do they get time to test and learn this? They don't. All of a sudden it's January and you're in Hawaii and you're like, well, I'd rather just I can earn a lot of money here. I'd rather just use my old thing. So listen, we probably come up with more questions than answers there, but it's a really interesting topic. And obviously huge credit to Ryan Brath for sort of doing a bit of research there, unearthing it and putting it out into the world, which is adding to that conversation, aren't we, Joe?
We are indeed.
How long have we been going for, Johnny boy? Because that was a preamble, Joe. 20 minutes? 18. Okay,
Thanks,
I'm just trying to keep an eye on things. So let's rattle through tested this week, Joe.
And that's the end of the preamble section.
Joe's a bit rusty. It's been a while, hasn't it, Joe?
Sorry,
you know what I mean? You're just announcing
name.
What's coming up. So tested this week, which I can announce because that's an official segment. Let's chat about the new TaylorMade P790 2025. I'll get it out of the bag, the newly placed bag.
Careful, it's
He's going to knock it
precarious.
down. He's going to knock it down. So P790, Joe.
Go on. What do you
2025
think?
2025. Well,
give me your initial impressions.
It's like a famous club. I think it's like a celebrity. When a new one comes out, everyone sits and takes notice because anyone really, I think TaylorMade said this in their presentation to us, from about 0 index to 20 could feasibly have one of these somewhere in the bag. A 0 handicapper might have it in their 4 irons. 20 handicapper could have it all the way through. And because it's got so much universal use, everyone's paying attention.
Correct.
Everyone wants to hear about it. So help me out with it.
Just bothering me. It's a bit smudged.
A little
at the
smudge.
moment.
That's what that chrome on the back would
bothering
do.
me. Yeah, funny you should say about the low handicap stuff. When I took this out for my first test and was photographing for the images for the magazine and stuff, I bumped into a chap on the chipping green who was I think he was visiting Saunton where I was testing. He said, "Oh, those are the new P790s. I play those." And we just got chatting. He's a plus two golfer. He's a senior player.
Get that up.
I mean, frog in my throat. mid-50s, mid to late 50s, I think he was. But yeah, +2 golfer, plays in all the national senior stuff. And this is perfect for someone like that. So you've still got the kind of playery shape and profile. You haven't got masses of offset. You haven't got an enormously thick top line. They are more substantial, everything I've just spoken about there, than, for example, a blade. But what you've got is you've got that extra power boost. This kind of birthed a category, a whole category within itself, P790. Yeah. I was fitting at Precision Golf when I think these first came out. I still haven't got that frog out.
Come on, you got it, son. do you want to just have a really big cough?
I think I just did. Nope, we're good. So yeah, I was fitting at Precision Golf when these first came out, and they just went in so many players' bags.
2017?
Yeah, I think it was around then, wasn't it, when they first started? Yeah. So yeah, just everything you'd want to see. And the new iteration, I think, is, I would have to say, well, I've just said things aren't improving that much. Driver-wise, I think that's the case. I think there is still things we're seeing in irons that are really good. Like I said, as little as, 8 years ago, a whole new category was birthed in irons, and people have been diving deeper and deeper into this. There's again, in irons, we're talking about 3D printed stuff we've seen with Cobra. There's some real opportunities, I still think, within irons for some genuine progress. But the tech here, basically what they've done, I'll come to aesthetics in a minute. The tech changes are, the main thing is it's a new face. So they found a much stronger material for the face part of the club, which means they can make it thinner because it's more stronger and more durable. They can make that face thinner. And when they make the face thinner, we all know it gets more flex and gets more ball speed from that face, because when it's thinner, it's going to rebound more and you just get that sort of boost in ball speed. And what it's also done is massively improved the feel. What I've noticed about this in testing, I didn't mind the feel of the old P790s, for example, but when I started putting it up against these, it's just a little bit, it was a little bit clickier. Now there's just a really nice, it's a really strange combination of soft but lively. So it sort of melts into the face but springs off, and it's super powerful. Again, I would say I'm seeing very similar data. I think I saw about a 0.8 leap in ball speed. It's a leap.
It's fine.
It's not gone backwards.
A leap is all
right, it's a leap.
I'd leap over a canyon, Joe. That sounds like I've sort of crossed the street.
You've hopped a puddle. So
yeah.
They've hopped a puddle in ball speed. But yeah, so aside from the tech, I'm just seeing a tiny bit more ball speed, and I'm getting that real significant enhancement in feel. The looks changed quite considerably.
It has. They've centered the P790 for the first time, which was a big deal on the presentation.
That isn't the considerable change that I was referring to. The profile has changed. Like, it's become a bit more playery. I put this down next to because obviously I keep all the old clubs I test as well, and it's nice to literally put them side by side and compare them. Top line is significantly thinner.
It's again, images if you're on YouTube, but for those listening, it's an incredibly attractive profile down at address.
Reduced offset, thinner top line. It's still plenty of real estate behind the ball to give you some confidence. So if you're someone who's a high handicap range thinking, I didn't want P790 to shrink and become playery, that's not necessarily what's happened. It's just had a real refinement in look. There's a bit on a club that I always look at, that I'm looking at right here. It's the transition from the hosel there into the top edge.
Yeah.
That bit can always go horribly wrong on some irons. And I didn't think it looked great on the last P790. This looks beautiful.
It's very smooth. It really flows from that hosel space there.
Yeah, there's no unnecessary thinning. There's no, the heel section is not too high. It's just a really nice transition. It's a really strong profile. So in terms of lofts, they are strong. So the pitching wedge is at 44 degrees of loft.
They've gone half a degree stronger, if I'm correct, in the 7-iron this year.
Just a touch. So 7-irons at 30, 4-iron at 20. So they are strong, but they've added what they call their flighted tech. So there's a lower CG in the longer irons to help you get the ball up. So we're impacting above that, getting the flight up. Higher CG in the shorter irons, so we can flight them down a little bit. And when you raise the CG and you're hitting below that CG, you're going to get more spin as well. So they've got a whole, it's kind of a bespoke map of CG locations throughout the set to help them perform.
I've seen the inside of each iron. It is different in each iron. Each iron serves a purpose in the bag, which I think is a very useful thing at this level, and why it appeals to so many people, I think.
I think so. And the other thing I noticed in testing, because TaylorMade are great, they send full sets rather than just like a 7-iron, which some manufacturers do. That's not a complaint, I guess.
Sound like a complaint.
Not a complaint. It's just people have financial constraints, but TaylorMade do a really good job of sending out full
TaylorMade
sets.
don't have financial constraints.
Obviously not. So you can actually see how that set is performing within comparable to one another. And what I would say is the leaps in... What are you laughing at?
Sorry. I don't know if it's going over the bikes, but you're just banging the iron on the floor. It's like you're going into war.
I am.
It's like you're sort of hammering into war. I like it. Sorry, carry on.
I mean it. So the ball speed boost that I mentioned, 0.8, that was the 7 iron. Saw slightly more ball speed increases in the longer irons. So I was getting a bit more oomph out of those. And I think that's really good because in fittings, in my experience, a lot of people start bunching up at that top end of the bag. So you quite often do a fitting with a slower speed player where you think, you could get rid of out of your 4, 5 and 6, you pick one of them. Me
and Sam said this in the hybrid episode. We think more people need to put hybrids in potentially that area to get that spread. But if there's an iron that's giving people that option they don't want to carry all those head covers.
I think I absolutely see this. So for people who get bunched to that top end, the P790 is well worth a look because I think you're just getting better gaps. I'm seeing that ball speed properly spread at the top end of the bag there. And I think it's just a really good set. I think you don't want to ruin a dynasty, do you? This is like a
and proper, it is a dynasty.
People have been really looking forward to this, and they certainly haven't. They've just made some nice aesthetic refinements. The feel's better. Again, like data point of view, it's minimal. We talk about that, but it has improved, I think, and they've just addressed a few little issues. It's just a really good, strong product.
And lastly, on this, to sum up, it's still that club that can go in, like I said. Maybe not 0 to 20, but it could be, but maybe like 5 to 15.
I've already told you, +2.
There you go, +2 to 20. And you can still see it finding its way into all of those bags in some guys.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. You've got the player look, slightly playery look now. I mean, it's a tricky one when... I'm sort of revisiting something here now, and when we were just trying to wrap up this segment.
Sorry, yeah.
P770. So they brought that down in terms of the latest iteration of P770. They wanted it to sit a little bit closer to the P7CB. So they refined the looks of that, changed the sole a little bit, shorter blade length, and just neatened that up to look a little bit more playery. Again, they've done that with P790, so that's moved back down. So I wonder whether the QI iron will see more action now because the P790 is just a touch more playery. But then again, I'm contradicting myself because I don't think the performance is necessarily any more playery.
No, it's just the looks have just refined that little bit to work its way down.
You don't need to strike the ball any better than you did with the last P790 to get the best out of this. The performance is all still there. Just maybe the slight intimidation factor of a slightly more traditional looking club might put some of the higher handicaps off. But if that is putting you off, I don't think it should do because the performance
just put a swing on it and the performance will
and just enjoy the more refined looks. Enjoy the fact you can get better looks in something that will still give you optimal performance.
There we go. P790 is a dynasty. It's one of those few. I think every golfer's heard of a P790. So good to hear it's still being looked after. Well done, TaylorMade. Let us know what you think of that. Of course, please. Lastly, I just wanted to tag this on because there's very few things when I do this equipment podcast that my non-golf friends are just like, what the heck are you on about? Not interested. But even my golf friends are just like, yeah, cool, whatever. There's been one product that came out, how long has it been out for now? Maybe a month by the time people listen to this?
Yeah.
Which is the Golf Pride Align Max Grip. My friend Reese, we play golf with, you know him, and my dad won't stop asking me about them. I want to try them as well.
You made me bring some.
I've now got some. I'm going to try one on my 8 iron. You're going to fit one for me, I think, aren't you, at some point today? Tell the people what it is and why you think me, Reese, and my dad are also interested in it right now.
Yes. So, well, essentially what it is we all know the difference. Do we all know the difference?
No,
There's round. I think I've harped on about it enough. There's round grips that are perfectly round, and there are ribbed grips or reminder grips that have a little spine down the back, a raised area of the grip.
I'm going to get it.
Going to get it off my shaft wall, are you?
Yeah.
Lovely. Traditionally, before Align, so I think that is the Align Max actually,
yes.
But the before Align, which is the previous iteration, which is still current, which I'll talk about in a moment. Reminders were hidden. In the olden days, people used to make their own reminders. So you'd get leather wrap grips and they would put little sticks
and it would all
down
be underneath it.
They put some sticks down the back and wrap over that to make sure they had a position to remind them where to put their fingers. So a little while ago, Golf Pride released Align, which essentially made that visible. So you had the red strip down the back. So when you were installing these clubs, you can make sure that the rib was absolutely perfectly straight and in alignment with where you wanted it to be. And to just really highlight the technology of what a reminder can do for you. I think that was a really clever marketing play. Since then, that's been a little while. That's been really popular. So this isn't an ad read, is it, or anything like that? So I can tell you who people been using this. So Xander Schauffele, He's a guy that uses a line. Robert Rock, who I spent a bit of time with, actually. He's a big
he's great video, actually. I'll link in the description on the Golf Month YouTube channel of you and Robert Rock having a little geek off about the golf swing. It was quite.
But it wasn't a geek off. I was just listening to him because I know very little about the golf swing, so I was just learning.
And he knows a lot.
He does know a lot. But yes, some of the feedback from, I mean, it was hugely popular and it still is a hugely popular current inline product. So you can still get a line, but Align Max is just like that on steroids. Basically, they've just decided
to again.
Go on. So basically, they've
significant
the raised ridge on the back of the grip. They've now created a greater protrusion. So they've taken that to the longest, or what is the longest?
25% bigger.
It's 25% bigger than the Align, but it's the more as pronounced as it's allowed within the rules of golf. And funnily enough, actually, I think when they were discussing this with the RNA and USGA, there may not have been an actual very clear guideline about what that was.
So they come up with the guideline.
I think the Align Max may have been a contributor to creating that guideline. So they've pushed that to the absolute maximum of what is available. A couple of other things. They've made it firmer. So the actual rib is pretty solid.
Pretty quite firm.
It's pretty quite firm. So it's pretty solid, very pronounced. And you aren't losing track of where your fingers and your club is placed in your hands on the backswing. One other thing they've done is they made it longer. So people using the full length of the grip, well, the reminder didn't go. You see how it stops?
Oh, the reminder. I think they made the grip longer.
No,
they made the reminder.
The actual reminder part, it didn't cover as much of the grip as it did before. And there were a few. They had a bit of feedback. The people that were really using the full length of the grip, going up and down on the grips on their shots, weren't getting the full benefits of the reminder. So they've made it longer, and also the extra protrusion, making it more sort of prevalent. A few people had said when you went up to mid-size, for example, or +4, the sort of the feeling of that rib was getting a little bit lost as the rest of the rubber or the rest of the grip was getting thicker around it. So creating this harder, much more noticeable rib makes it still perform just as well as you go up through thickness.
It's brilliant. So I'm boring insight. I'm resetting my grip this year, Joe. I've got bang back into golf again, probably from doing this. And I had a horrible strong grip and I'm trying to go to neutral. I've got a grip training aid on my 8 iron. I might show that in a different episode soon. So this for me is going to be brilliant because I'm still learning that new grip feeling and what that's all about. So to have something on the back of it where I'm going to be able to place my hands on it, I think could be huge for me. But it's going to be great for anyone regardless, I think, because I don't see, unless you really hate the feeling of it, why you wouldn't want something telling you where your hands need to be all the time.
Well, I'm going to be, I'm not, this isn't controversial because we're just talking about what it is. I've always been a round guy, and I think what you get used to is very important. I love the concept of this, and I wish I could get used to it, but I've spent 30 years with round grips, and the second you put me in a reminder, for some reason, I don't know what it is, maybe my overactive release. I seem to hit it left a lot with the reminder, but that's because I'm a round guy. Someone like Tiger Woods is a round player, Tommy Fleetwood, round player, but there's some people, Scheffler is a huge reminder guy. He currently uses the older Golf Pride Tour Velvets that have an inbuilt reminder, but it's not visible.
The visible one like you get on a line.
And he has 6 layers of tape around that. And we know about his training grip because I bang on about that. And he's so fastidious about how he gets his hands placed on the club. You see him he almost spends as much time gripping and re-gripping on the driving range as he does hitting shots. And it makes so much sense. I've written about this at length. It's the only point of contact you've got with the club, and it's the biggest influence over where that club face is pointed, and where that club face is pointed is the biggest influence over where the ball goes. Robert Rock spoke at length about this when we were out in Abu Dhabi, actually at the launch of this grip. He loves it, and he can't wait to get this on all his clubs, which he will have by the time we have this out. He is desperate to know that his fingers are on the club and his hands are on the club in the same way every single time at address. But it's not just at address. He can feel the ridge throughout his golf swing to check position, really helps with facial awareness throughout the golf swing. Where is that club on the backswing? And he couldn't have spoken more effusively about it. I wish I could speak more effusively about it from personal experience. But like I said, I'm a round guy.
And that's fine. And that's the way you are. I can't wait to get into this because
I think it'll be great for you.
That more neutral grip I've gone for, now my face is wide open because I'm used to having a really shut base. So to be able to understand that on my backswing, can't wait to try it. I'll report back on it. I'm just going to put on the 8 iron to start and see how I get on.
I think you've hit on a good point there, actually, specifically for people who are making some changes and having lessons, whether it's grip, whether it's anything to do with your golf swing. This could be a really good thing just to get in there, just to give you that facial awareness. Because when you're changing things, even if you're changing plane, wrist hinge, grip, whatever it be, you can lose a bit of awareness of where the face is. So just having this really prevalent reminder, I think, is a really smart idea.
And I don't love the idea of it on my wedges, and I think a lot of people don't play it because if I want to open and close the face, I don't think that's for me.
What Xander does. We covered that in a What's
I think
in the
that's
Bag.
why I'm thinking that. I've definitely heard that before, but you've spoken so much about grip over the last, however many episodes you've done now, and I've heard other people talk about neutral grip and all this stuff. So it's really excited to use that. And like I said, it's got my golfing friends excited.
Just in multi-compound at the moment, so you can get multi-compound.
I'm going to put it back in the wall while you
standard +4. I think you can get mid-size at the moment. Probably should have checked that, but only in the multi-compound. He can't get it back on the shaft wall, can he? He can. So only multi-compound at the moment, but Align is available in Z Grip, available in Tour Velvet, the previous generation. So I would be very surprised if in the works isn't Tour Velvet Align Max, isn't Z Grip Align Max. So that would be my hunch. That'll be coming soon.
Lovely. Good work, Golf Pride. 2 good products there. And I know we spoke about how it's tough for drivers to kind of move the needle at the minute. I don't think it is elsewhere. There are exciting things happening.
Plenty.
Okay. It's time for our favourite part of the show. You warmed up for this, Joe.
I've been waiting for Hideki.
It's Ask the Pod.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what's Ask the Pod?
The jingle.
Right, yes. I'm ready.
We ready?
Ask the Pod.
Ask the Pod. Ask the Pod. Ask the Pod. Good work, Johnny, on the ones and twos behind the cameras. Thank you very much. We actually had an email in.
I'm out of sorts today.
Oh, yeah, you are. It's fine. It's your first day back. It's like your first day back at school.
It is.
We had an email the other week and it said Ask the Pod in the subject title, which is great because then I know what it's all about. And then it went brackets, insert jingle here. I liked that. It was a nice reference to the jingle. So at least some people don't hate it.
Too busy panicking because I can't remember what the Ask the Pod is. But this will be fun.
It's
okay.
Organic.
Lovely.
This week it's from Alan in Wiltshire. Thank you for emailing us, Alan.
Cheers out.
Joe. Hi, Joe and Dan, brackets, but mostly Joe. That's fine. I absolutely loved your videos on the Golf Monthly channel, playing with Bryson's irons.
Yes.
But
I remember.
It's not like we planned this like 3 or 4 times before a show.
I remember.
But I want to hear more. Can you go into more detail on your experiences with them? I also want to know if you're putting any of them into full-time play after your success with them. Thank you, Alan. Joe, give the people some context about what Alan's on about before you go into
we can both talk about this because we played together that day. It was a pro-am. There was a individual pro competition and a pro-am. But anyway, I'll get into that so you can give you some proper
homework. I'm going to put some links down in the description. It's both Golf Monthly videos. So go to the Golf Monthly YouTube channel. Joe did a warm-up session with Bryson's irons and then we played a tournament together. So maybe if you want to go and watch that before we have this chat, that could be fun.
Do it now. Pause us. Watch those. We'll wait. I think one's 26 minutes and the other's about 18.
So we just got to sit for 45 minutes of silence.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Let's have a lunch.
Tesco meal deal.
Anyway, so go watch them. And welcome back if you've just paused and watched it. For those who haven't been bothered to go and do that, Joe, what did we do?
So I had an idea. I'd been watching a lot of Bryson. Was getting really interested in his equipment because he's got some absolutely nutty equipment. We've covered that before. So we've got the 1-length iron scenario, we've got the arm lock putters, we've got 5-degree driver, long drive driver from Crank, Pro V1 left dash ball. There's just loads of stuff going on. And I was really intrigued. And I thought I'd like to try that stuff. I've just been watching him win the US Open, shoot 58, nearly win the US PGA. I've been watching a lot of him on YouTube. And I was like, this is interesting. I want to know what this feels like. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to make a video. I'm going to try and create his bag as best as possible. And then I'm going to go and play at a pro event. So initially I thought I'm just going to butcher an old set of irons, grind some out, add some weight to sun, cut them all to the same length and make myself a 1-length set of iron. I got really busy with launch season, couldn't be bothered to do that.
Sounds like a lot of effort.
Rang a Voda who make Bryson's irons and said, look, I want to make this video. Any chance you can help me out? They were brilliant. They said, come along. Toby, who works with Voda in the UK, went and met him at Parkstone, had a fitting for Avoda's Origin 1-length irons. They weren't Bryson's curved face irons, but they were the Origin 1-length irons. So I was like, fantastic, this is great. I'm all set. Ordered them up, got them through. Brilliant. They are absolutely gorgeous. I'm really interested to give them a bit more a bit more time when I get the chance to test them out. But after that, they rang me about a week later and said, look, if you are making this video, why don't we go the whole hog? We've got there's 2 sets of Bryson's irons in the world, the curved faces, the one length stuff, his shaft, his cricket
mega grips.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. And they said, we could get you the spare sets if you like, for a very short period of time. If you tell us when this event is, we'll ship them in, you ship them straight back, because obviously they're very protective of that technology, and it's essentially Bryson's backup set of golf clubs. So got them across, ready for it. And they obviously had no practice with them because they wanted to come across straight away, needed them straight back. So that was going to be a risk. But anyway.
So right, you got the irons.
Got the irons.
You emailed Crank, and we got the Crank driver, and we got the Crank 3-wood that he uses. Putter.
Sick putter, arm lock putter. We actually had that already with Golf Monthly. Joel, our boss, had that. He'd done a review of that years ago. Very upright, arm lock, descending face technology, just like an Answer style, Newport style putter head. Tightless, Pro V1 left dash golf
wedges.
balls.
We just say that.
Well, no, the wedges, that was an interesting one because he plays Ping Glide 4.0 wedges. They're one of ones. But what I thought was potentially even better was the original set that they built for Bryson had wedges with it. They tried to develop for Bryson. He put the pings in instead of those, but this made the wedges that I use the exact same spec as the rest of the iron, same length, same swing weight, same grip, same shaft, same everything. And we were ready to go.
So we had the set.
So we went and entered. It was the Devon PGA, so the regional PGA that I play in, a winter event at Saunton, which is only 10 minutes up the road from me. And I said, right, it's basically an individual pro event and the pro-am that runs alongside that. So it's one pro, one am. We played as a team. We won the team event as well, didn't we, Dan?
I've never won anything. You know that. That's my first win.
What a time.
I'm not even on the board at my golf club.
That's
been there 10
tremendous.
years.
I'm
playing
really pleased
comps,
with that.
that's probably why.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, somehow I went and won the pro event, the pro individual event, didn't I? I shot 4 under par.
Mate, you birdied the first 4.
I did. I went out like an absolute steam train, which you'll have seen because you just paused and watched the video.
Oh, of course.
So went out like an absolute steam train, birdied the first 4 holes, raking putts in from all over the place with this sick arm lock putter.
Can I pull you up on something there?
Go on.
You weren't arm locking.
I wasn't.
And that's fine. But I want talk us through like your experience of that putter, because you putted so well. I just want to talk about how you used it and why it worked so well. Yeah, you're a really effing good putter, by the way. I played with Joe a few times and he just rolls the rock. And you're happy to admit that.
That's my thing, isn't it? Yeah, I tried the arm lock, I think it was a day or 2 before, and it was like I was stirring soup. The putter blade, I couldn't keep it anywhere near the line. It was so difficult. So I actually used the arm lock in a more conventional way. I had it the extra length. I gripped it down the bottom like Bryson does, but I gripped it with my prayer grip and had the shaft vertical rather than leaning up against my left forearm. So that's the only
I'm not calling you out, I'm just saying. I find Alan wants to know about how you use the clubs.
And that's what happened. But because of that, because it had so much forward shaft lean built in, I had to take loft off the putter, because if I'd have moved that shaft back to normal, it had about 9 degrees and I'd have been chipping it up and checking it by the hole. So I had to take some loft off the putter. So yeah, I did slightly bend the rules there, but I had to make it somewhat playable, and it certainly worked.
Wait, you were holding so many putts, and I guess we'll come on to this in a second about what you might put in the bag. But talk about the rest of the clubs then. So we know you won the event, you played unbelievably well, but like, what was it like actually having those things in your hands?
I'll get the driver. I'll get to the irons in a second. Driver, I loved. So I'm quite quick anyway. I'm like a 120 plus player when I'm swinging it quick. So the 5 degree didn't scare me too much. I just pegged it up a little bit higher, felt like I stayed behind it and just tried to sweep it up in the air. I only hit it 3 times because it only really demanded it, that golf course. 3 par 5s, hit 2 absolute monsters and went in with 8 irons off both of those, I think. And then I hit
17, I think, was mega. No, 17 was
17
mega.
And the early one was good. And then I blazed one quite a long way right, but still managed to make birdie off that, chipped it out the rubbish and wedged it and hold another big putt. To driver, I thought was fantastic. 3 would I relied on a lot, because it was a day where I just felt you need to keep the ball in front of you. So I spent a lot of time just chucking the ball down on the deck. It's a strong 3, it was like 12 degrees of loft.
Yes.
So I could just nudge it out there, still get some reasonable distance, and the crank stuff felt great. I was really impressed with it. They had the LA Golf Bryson series shafts in, very stout, very
You call them like a telegraph pole.
Not as, I mean, maybe I didn't know Bryson's tipping, so I just did sort of standard tour tippings. I wonder whether he tips them more or less than what I did. But they didn't feel as stiff as the iron shafts, which we'll get onto in a moment. But I mean, the grips just throughout the set laughable, just so thick. So it was the weight of them as well, like a standard Golf Pro Tour Velvet that I would use around the 50 gram mark. The grips that Bryson used, like 120 grams, so more than double and nearly half again, weight-wise. So that makes the overall weight of the club so heavy, but makes the swing weight of the club really light because you're moving all that weight up the top end, so you're changing the balance of the... It was just, like, honestly...
Your brain must have been, like, it was a taxing day, I think, mentally, because you're thinking, I've got to get this around. And then, physically... These heavy, really stiff clubs.
Yeah, just trying to work the whole thing out was just extraordinary in terms of how do I swing these to try and get a strike on the golf ball to start with? And then when I do get the strike, how far are these things going? Because I've got a 7-iron length, 17-degree 5-iron in my hand here. So it's like shorter than standard, but with no loft, with a curved face, with a cricket bat grip, with a telegraph pole for a shaft. That was really, really hard work. Brilliantly made, incredibly impressive technology. I did actually feel like I noticed at times the curved face. If I hit one out the toe, I mean, I've just struggled to get the ball going left because they're so heavy. I just couldn't release the club through, which I mentioned on the video was actually not a bad thing because once you take one side of the golf course completely out of play, you've only got one thing to think about, right? Just how far left can I try and hit this to not go right? Just incredibly hard work. I love the concept of one length. It would take me an awful long time to get used to wedges at 7-iron length. I found that a little cumbersome around the greens. Bryson's wedge plays come on leaps and bounds. His stats of his wedges are really, really good. That used to be levelled at him that was a really bad idea. Your short game's not good. You need to have something shorter in there. He's overcome that over time. 100%. You
were in a little pot bunker on 8, was it?
Yeah.
Maybe 7. And I think that was the first time you had to get that 60-degree wedge out. Was that weird? You were kind of up, one leg was out of the bunker, you were up against the face a little bit. Was that weird having then is it 6-iron length?
Yeah.
6-iron length shaft. You're like, oh, sugar, I need to...
I say 7 because I'm over length. So it's 7-iron length for me, but a standard 6.
But looking down at that, when you've got to hit something deft out of a bunker, you must have been like, I'm stood all the way up here. I need to be down there.
But because I was stood out of the bunker, the extra length helped me get down to the bottom of the board.
It's quite fortuitous, actually.
It was potentially fortuitous. So, yeah, really, really weird experience. Couple of people put in the comments of the video, love this video. This tells me all I need to know that custom fitting's a load of nonsense. You can go and pick up a set of those clubs. Never fit for you, fit for someone else, and you can go and win a PGA event.
That's probably the opposite of what, like, you're quite a good player.
I think
you know what's going on.
Yeah, without wanting to sort of blow smoke. Yeah, I think if you're a good player and you've been around and you know equipment, you get just a little bit of time. I had a range session before it in the morning, which we filmed, which you'll have watched, as we said. And you can just figure out a way. I know they weren't fit for me and I know they weren't right for me and they didn't feel good. But you can figure out a way. You can see what they're doing and
you're
go,
a professional
right, okay,
golfer.
I'm going to aim here instead. Yeah. I'm going to allow for that. So you just have to figure it out. So that round wasn't, custom fitting doesn't matter because look, he can go and win an event. That was coping, figuring it out on the fly and fortuitously holding an awful lot of putts.
I don't know if people knew, people do probably know this. You're a professional golfer,
yes,
right? Who knows his equipment very, very well. Like your brain can figure that all out. You could adjust and recalibrate for that sort of stuff.
To an extent, yeah. I mean, as best as I could.
Yeah.
But like I said to you, I was absolutely shattered afterwards because the mental exercise of trying to figure out on every shot, you just couldn't let up because I didn't know how they would perform in the wind. So like I said, a 17-degree 5-iron at what is to me 7-iron length. Where do you start? Like, what's the apex going to be? How much is the wind going to affect?
You barely had any time with them. I must stress that we had a range session, and that is genuinely it. You've been out with the cranks, I think, the woods.
Yeah,
a bit
so
more.
I took them out,
but it was the irons because they were so special. Yeah. You couldn't have them for long. You had them for a couple of days, and they were back on their way to Avoda.
Correct. So yeah, it was a great day. I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed your company, obviously. But it was more just relief because I woke up thinking I just don't want to make a fool of myself here and go and shoot mid-80s.
Scabbed them off the first tee, didn't you?
I did scab them.
I hit one sideways with a driver. Like literally, I missed the face.
But I left myself into what is a relatively short par 4. I left myself 170 yards and hit a wedge 40 foot past the hole because the wedge is 40 degrees and 7 iron length, so essentially an 8 iron. So, and then hold the putt down the hill, and then off we went. Yeah, lovely day.
Any of that going in your bag full time?
I've toyed with the idea of I've put the crank in for an event, and I came second in that event. Drove it pretty well. I think because of the mini driver I've got as well, I'm starting to think it's worth me having something that is potentially a little bit more erratic because the less loft and additional length, because I played it like a full 46 inches long to try and maximize speed. So dispersion's inevitably going to go up because I'm losing spin that's going to keep the ball on line. But I think I'm picking up 10 to 12 yards of carry. So
that's
I'm
a lot at your level.
That's potentially really useful in the right environment. And if I'm going to pull out a driver, because I'm not the world's straightest driver anyway, so I feel like if I'm going to pull out a driver, I might as well be maximising how far I can get this thing down.
And that's what the stats say nowadays. Just get yourself down there as far as you can, figure out the rest when you get up there.
So that's got potential. Everyone in the comments was like, that putter's got to go in your bag. Nope. That putter's got to go in your bag.
He looks ridiculous. Why would you have an arm lock putter and go, I'm not going to do that?
I'm not arm locking it. It didn't feel brilliant. Like I find sometimes when you go counterbalance, you make these putter shafts really long, they get a bit vibratey, and I get a bit of feedback because he's just a bit more.
There's a bit more going on.
There's a bit more wiggle going on. So I didn't love the feel of it, despite the performance. And like as you said, I'm a good putter, and I 100% don't necessarily think it was the putter that was doing the job that day. I'm good at reading greens. I'm good at finding the pace.
And the greens were so pure that day. It was such a good day for golf. You rolled the rock very well. Go watch those videos. They're really fun. And there's a bit more insight, Alan. Thank you for watching them and wanting to hear more.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
What are we doing next?
Hideki.
How long are we going for, Johnny? Help us out. 51 minutes. 51, Joe. So let's try and do this in maybe 15 or 20.
Easy.
Hideki
Matsuyama.
No, I got to plug the magazine first.
Perfect.
If that's all right.
Go for it.
This month, Joe, Alex Elliott's on the cover.
I like Alex. He's a nice man.
Lovely man. I've done a few videos with him. Kickpoint listeners, you get an offer, 3 of these for £5 on your doorstep.
Can't say fairer than that.
Cover $5.99. There you go. So you're getting 3 for less than the price of 1. Exclusive offer to Kickpoint. www.magazinesdirect.com/Kickpoint. And you can get that in Ireland. Because I didn't know if you could last week, and you can. If that interests you at any level.
Not me, no.
You want to get on with Hideki Matsuyama, and so do we, because we are absolutely waffling along here. So what's in the bag time's back, and I've been waiting to do this one for a while, Joe, because of what we said at the top of the episode, the sort of mysteriousness of Hideki Matsuyama's bag, because it chops and changes a lot. The putter, he's already had a win this year with a very interesting putter. So let's get going.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you a big bio of Hideki. We all know about Hideki Matsuyama. He's widely regarded as the ball striker. People always talk about going to stand next to Hideki and hear this thump that comes off his irons. He's a big meaty fella, isn't he? And
followed him around at the Open 2023, behind the ropes.
Of course.
I shouldn't have been. I got kicked off in the end. It was good stuff, man. It was classy.
He's a flusher. He is a real flusher. 35 under par at the Century, wasn't he? Like that's
daft. I know it's a gettable course, but
35
to be 35 under anywhere,
that's birdieing half the holes, more or less. Yeah. I mean, what's going on there? Loves a bit of lead tape, loves a bit of tour only stuff, a bit of tour horse, and loves a putter. He travels, rumour has it, with at least 12 putters to every event.
12?
At least a dozen putters to every event. Jeez. And almost always ends up in the same one. But
he's like us. I think putters are a fun thing to chop and change.
Yeah, he takes so many. Every practice round you see him just spread around his bag. But he actually put a new one in for the Century, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, so going on to the sort of old equipment theme, there's bits in there. Driver, as you said, he's in the Srixon. He's a Srixon player, isn't he? He's in the Srixon ZX5 LS Mark II, 9.5 degrees. And that is fitted with a very, I think, quite an interesting shaft. Graphite design, Tour AD, so the orange one you see a lot.
I like them.
Very visible. DI8TX, so 86 grams in a driver shaft. That's super heavy.
Yeah,
very heavy. A lot of people don't play that heavy in their 3-wood, and he's playing it in driver. And he's a very strong guy, and it's obviously doing a great job for him. I don't know anyone else since going into the graphite days. Obviously, back when we were playing steel shafts, they were well over 100 grams, but since graphite days, there's very few people that go above kind of 75, 76, and he's like.
And why do you think he's doing that?
I have no idea.
No.
I honestly have no idea. It could just be a strength thing. He could just... in my experience, every time I put a heavier shaft in any golf club, it brings my flight down.
Okay.
So there might be a flight thing for him if he's experiencing the same thing. For example, I was toying about personally with an Apex UW 17 degree because I love the head and wanted to get it right. And for ages, I had it in this 7X and the 75 gram and 78 gram. And I tried it in a few things. It just kept popping it up. Fuji sent me a Ventus 9X. So going up significantly in weight. Popped that in because I was just intrigued and
perfect.
The flight window, it all came together.
Yeah,
I will never
see in colour again.
That club will never come out of my bag. So could just be that you could just respond better to heavy shafts. It's got kind of a soft handle and midsection, that shaft, but a really stiff tip, so very stable down the bottom end. Notice from the crowd there, please. It's on the plus 0.5 setting for loft and it's flatter, but it's a tour only head and we've got no info on this. No one knows why. It's stamped
this is the mystery.
It's stamped with T230 Proto.
But like it's been that model's been superseded.
Yeah.
So it's like, was it a Proto back in, was Proto when that came out a year and a half ago?
Correct. So it could have just been a numbered version of the initial prototypes for that, and it's the head he wanted.
And maybe he seems like the kind of guy that when that was working, he's like, do not touch that. You can't take that away. That's all staying on there.
Absolutely, but there's very little info on it. And I wonder whether we see a lot of, we've delved into this a little bit before, Asian only equipment. So the Asian market have some different heads and things available. So maybe that was available there. There's very little info on that, but it's interesting. I'll be looking keenly to see when he switches, if he switches into ZXi, because I was really impressed with the new Strixon products. I'd be interested to see if he's equally as impressed.
Please refer to our conversation earlier for stuff like about, new clubs coming in at some point. We did 3 wood.
Guess.
TaylorMade QI10.
Absolutely.
I knew that. I'm happy I got that.
There's just so many. Here's another one, 15 degrees, bonded hosel. Same graphite design shaft, but goes up to 9TX.
Gee whiz.
Can't tell you anything on the 9TX because it doesn't exist. So you can't get that at consumer level.
Wow.
So one of the few
I love
shafts.
this bag already. It's gonna be my favourite.
I couldn't tell you the torque, couldn't tell you the weight. I'm guessing based on his 86 gram driver shaft, it's probably in the mid 90s. But pure guesswork, so I can't tell you much.
Superb.
Much on that. But love it. That QI10 is going to go down as one of the all-time great fairway woods. It's only a year old, and crikey, there's a lot of people in it. Crikey. 5 wood Cobra King Rad Speed Tour. Eh?
2021 called.
Yeah.
It wants its 5 wood back.
Hideki, we got 2021 on the
What's that doing in there? That's insane.
Just random, isn't it? Just does what he wants, this fella. 17.5 degrees, plays at a 19 degrees. Yeah. Shaft again, graphite design, Tour AD, DI10X, and I can't tell you anything about that again. Why, Dan?
It doesn't exist.
Because it doesn't exist. It's been built only for Hideki in that weight category, in that flex category. To be Hideki and get all this stuff.
To be Hideki Matsuyama. Yeah. To be such a flusher that all these brands are like, yes, please.
Do what you want, please. What weight do you want it? What flex do you want it?
What's yours is ours. What's ours is yours.
Love it. Let's move on to his irons then. The Strixon Z Forge, the blade. Z Forge 2, 4 to 9 iron. I'll go through some specs and I'll talk a little bit about that. They're very tour only. So you'd think they were the Z.
Funny that with Hideki.
Yeah. So they're not the consumer Z Forge 2 that you'll see. They've got a very different shaping on the back, different muscle part. There's no V-sole, which I love in all Strixon irons.
He doesn't want a bit of V-sole,
doesn't want the greatest sole in golf. His is much thinner and totally different topography with a little bit of leading edge relief. So just again, very, very tour only stuff from Hideki here. Really interesting shaft choice for me. Dynamic Gold Tour issue, True Temper Dynamic Gold Tour issue S400s. So he's got some of the stiffest and heaviest wood shafts available, and he goes quite soft by all accounts in his S400s. However, I wonder, based on how strong he is, I think that's probably a weight thing more than a flex thing. So basically, if he wanted to go X100s, which would be more his cup of tea in terms of flex, you can only get them in 130 grams. S400s are 132 grams. So my guess here, and I reckon I'm probably right on this. I think he's gone into the S400s to get that extra 2 grams. I think I'm right because I'm right. He's gone to get the extra 2 grams of weight that you can get from the S400 because he's looking to max out that weight. And then he's probably hard stepped these shafts, which means he's put the 9-iron shaft in the 8-iron and so on and so forth to
get the flex right.
To get the flex.
Why couldn't he get an X100 that's just a bit heavier? Maybe they don't want to do that for him.
There is such a thing as an X7 shaft, which Jason Day toyed with for a while, which I think is a little bit heavier as well, but it's a pretty harsh profile. That it's very, very heavy, very, very stiff. Might be up Hideki Street, but
we'll get him in touch.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he's aware to learn some Japanese and get in touch. However, seems to be doing all right with his hard step, potentially S400.
But probably because you said it.
Almost definitely because I've said it.
These are good little nuggets, TJ. This is a fascinating bag.
It is. It's a really interesting bag. It's not great for the consumer because you can barely get anything that's in his bag if you're looking to emulate it.
It's funny, we do what's in the bags on the Golf Monthly website, and often there's a little, if you want to go buy it, like here's a good place to go shop. There's going to be none of that on Hideki's page. You've got no chance. Don't try and emulate this.
Absolutely zero chance. You can get close, but you can't get to be the same. Got no information on his lie angle, but they're likely to be flat. So his gap wedge is 63, which is half to a degree flatter than standard. So you would imagine that would carry through into his irons. And looking at his technique, I would probably say so too. Okay. Wedges, as a Strixon guy, Strixon Cleveland RTX forged prototype, Japan only. So we've got 48, 52, 56, bent to 57.5. And a 60.08 bent to 62.
Wow.
All at D3, which is quite light for wedges in terms of swing weight. So
do they
generally
tend to put that close to the head?
Yeah, tend to add more weight down the bottom end. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a player. I can't off the top of my head, but my set, I'll go kind of D4 throughout my irons, and then I'll go to D6 in my wedges just to add a little bit more weight when I'm taking bit of head awareness down the bottom end, but I don't know what his iron swing weights are because, again, he doesn't talk to a lot of people. No. And there's a lot of speculation in here, but there is a lot of information stamped on some of his clubs, and there's stickers on a few of them that give a few little bits of things away. So yeah, interesting that D3 feels like a very light balance for a wedge swing weight for someone as powerful and as strong as Hideki. True Tempered Dynamic Gold Tour issue S400 shafts, as in the irons. Putter was an interesting one. Scotty Cameron 009M centre shaft tour prototype putter that went in Hawaii, and I think he had about 3 putts for the whole week by the looks of things. Didn't he? Gained 400 shots on the greens, and it's one of the few putters that I've seen him use. Again, that when he's delved away from me, he's pretty staunch. There's a very specific Newport Scotty that he's used for ages that he keeps what he won the Masters with, and no matter what he puts in on the practice round or the putting green, he always tends to start.
That's like the first love. I keep going back to her.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That's
has he stayed with it for the rest of the season so far? I saw
him in it at Torrey at the Genesis.
At the Genesis,
2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks later on. So that's had a good stint. It's basically a Newport head. Centre shaft here, but it's got very shallow milling on the face. So that'll be a very specific feel thing. Depth of milling is something we'll get into at some point in putters. We'll talk to someone who knows a little bit more about it on me, because you can change the depth of that milling and you can really change the feel of the putter, how hard or soft it feels.
Put a pin in it.
And he's a shallow milling guy.
Can I ask you something about, I know we're not a technique podcast at all. I know he's a very good putter, right? Do you not think he looks a bit awkward over the ball? Yeah, he looks awkward. He looks quite fidgety. Looks like he can't settle in.
He's got low hands. Yeah, he's got low hands. The toes off the ground. I don't want to stereotype by nation, steady. But there's a couple of Japanese. I think Aoki I'm getting the name wrong. Was it Jumbo Aoki? He was the same. Very low hands. He's going back. Very low hands. Toe off the ground, and quite a stabby sort of action. Whether maybe he emulated that growing up and became used to it.
You fiddle around with putters all the time. Your technique looks crazy. Yeah. You're not terrible at putting. I don't know where he sits on the tour, but it's always looked awkward to me.
It looks like an awkward technique, but yeah, if we're bringing it back to equipment, you just think to yourself, well, if you're working this, like Scotty Cameron literally makes him a new putter every 5 minutes. So you would think someone from the tour team might get into him and say, we can make you one flatter if you want, so the toe doesn't stick up in the air. We could get this soling out and performing as it should, and you could hit it. Because when you get the toe as extremely up as he does, don't forget you're raising the lowest point of that, the sole of that putter where he's going to hit it is not sold out on the ground. So potentially he's hitting putts low on the face quite a lot of the time. It's not great. And if his stats putting wise were fantastic, you just got to forget about it. But it is notoriously the weakest part of his game. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think you might be onto something there, Dan.
Oh, I don't want to be the guy who calls out Matsuyama for putting.
Well, so far I've got to learn Japanese to work out what his lie angles are, where he gets his shafts, and I've got to pass on your thoughts about his putting technique.
If we could imagine if we somehow got what's in the bag with him, with like a translator or something, an interpreter. Oh mate, that would be a whole that would be a whole thing. He gained 5 strokes on the greens at the Century.
Is that what it was? 5. That's big.
But last season he ranked 121st on tour, strokes gained putting.
And I think that's about where he lives.
Sounds about right, doesn't it?
But again, there's so many people have just these little areas, don't they, that just don't quite click. Scotty Scheffler is one of the few. I mean, he had that period with his putting where he struggled, but now it's come up to par almost with the rest of his game. And when you get someone who fires in all departments of the game like Scheffler does, you get someone who wins 9-10 tournaments in a year like he did last year.
If I the year before averaged minus 0.1 strokes gained putting and then rocked up at the first tournament of the year and gained 5.4, I think I'd have fainted. That's an absurd jump. But interestingly, his putts per round last season, 2024, 29th on tour, 28.4. Okay. So he's obviously sticking it close. He's so skilled around the greens and so good with his irons.
Well, that's where some of these stats feed into one another, don't they? Yeah. So putts per round is a nonsense category, really. Because if you're a bad hitter and you don't hit any greens and you chip it up to... day. Well, no, I'm talking if you're bad hitter and you miss the greens, you're chipping it up to 2 foot on every hole, tap it in. Well, 18 putts is a great round, but if you're tapping in from 2 foot every time, it doesn't really matter. If you're a fabulous player and you've hit 18 greens in regulation, but your proximity to the hole's not as good, time. Then 36 is a great day. Yeah, so it's such a nonsense stat that I much prefer the strokes gained one. Before we finish, I just want to get on to his grips. Really interesting. Ionic X grips. Resin. I think I've spoke to you about Ionic grips before.
We've done them.
Fleetwood.
No, we've not done him yet. We did Ionic on...
I can't remember who
we've definitely done them anyway.
We've spoken about Ionic.
Yeah. Some point.
I wonder who it was. Interesting. But resin construction, Tommy Fleetwood uses them. They're kind of UV resistant, so they don't crack over time. They've got waterproof elastomer grip, so they're really good in the wet. In fact, they're really good and really bad in the wet. When they're wet, they're terrible. But when you dry them, after being wet, they're the stickiest things in the world. So if you look after them when they're wet, they can be fantastic in the wet. And the idea is that being a bit firmer in the material they use, you can bend a rubber grip a bit, can't you? If you put some real pressure on that, you can twist it a little bit and you'll get some level of movement, yeah?
Like churning butter.
Yeah, some level of movement.
You can feel a bit.
And with the high speeds at impact and ground interaction, Ionic think that they've done a better job of reducing torque at impact. It does produce a slightly firmer feel, but if it's reducing torque at impact, good idea. I really like Ionic grips, and gearheads out there will know about Ionic grips. It's kind of an iconic thing that a lot of people have used. Ball.
There's a pun in there somewhere.
No. Iconic Ionic.
Yeah, okay. Something in there.
Ball 2025, the Strixon Z-Star.
Is this the first new thing?
First new product to be excited about. Z-Star XV in testing, firmer feel, great speed, and super, super spinny around the greens. Really reactive on and around the greens. Just a really interesting bag. Like I said, it'd be so cool to... It's never going to happen, but speak to him in person with a translator and get some thoughts about that.
I'd love to speak to him about all the gaps that we simply can't quite fill in, but I have so many questions about.
Shafts you can't get. Cobra 5 woods coming out the blue.
A rad speed. What the heck is going on?
Dropping into stiff shafts when you're one of the strongest hitters in the world in your irons.
Yeah.
There's some stuff going on here, isn't there?
All for 2 grams extra weight because that's all it is.
Guessing.
Potentially hard step.
Guessing. But yeah, that's Hideki, mate.
Yeah, good work on what you could find there.
Thanks, buddy.
I knew that would be a good one. I think I watched him at the Century and went, we need to do him. Just a mad putter he's got.
Do you know what? How old do you reckon he is?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Hideki Matsuyama.
I feel like he's been around forever.
Yeah, but he still looks quite young. 34.
33 today.
Happy birthday, Hideki Matsuyama. That would have been the week because it comes out after that. But so he's only just turned 33.
Yeah, I thought he was pushing 40.
He's just been around for ages, isn't he?
Yeah, I feel like I watched him growing up, but I absolutely didn't. Significantly younger than me. But there you go. Anyway.
And he's a Pisces. I'm a Pisces. So that's why we're both.
Good to know.
It's good stuff, isn't it? That clearly means I've run out of things to say. And that's probably for the best, isn't it? It means it's time to wrap up. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. The return of Joe the Pro. Sam's back next week. We can finally put that putter episode out.
Did you miss me at all?
We had a good time, didn't we? Like Johnny, you enjoyed Sam. Yeah, Johnny and Rhea, they were buzzing. They were
Sam's
like, thank
a really
God,
nice
Joe's
guy.
He did a good job doing his little category. His little cat, so patronising.
That was, wasn't it?
And the product we spoke about, you'll hear it next week. It rhymes with Schmoddersme.
Yeah.
And we can't talk about the Schmoddersme today on Friday. So we'll talk about that next week. Sam will be back. But then you'll be back after that.
Back to normal.
Back to normal. We've got PXG Secret Weapon. We've got some bag doctors to do. We've got some more Whitbys coming up. We've got a jam-packed month coming up. So do join us for that. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're following. Make sure you're doing everything that is necessary of you.
And stick with us this year. I think this is going to be a big year.
Oh,
I really do. We've got some good stuff planned. Got some trips planned. Going to get some really good content.
Got some names coming on the pod.
And we spent we're not even a year old, and we spent our first period feeling our way into this, trying to get studios sorted, trying to get guests, trying to get format. Now we know what we're doing. We feel like we know what we're doing. We've cracked it. And I think we're going to provide some really good stuff, so stay with us.
And if that isn't a fighting talk, there's a phrase in there somewhere. I don't know what is. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week for some putter chat, and then Joe back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
See you then.
Bye.